Hello Divination and welcome. In today's tutorial, I'm going to show you step by step how to design a unique full screen layout with an animated scroll button. So this is the final design we're aiming to achieve in today's tutorial. So without wasting a lot of time, let's dive in and let's get started. Okay, so before we begin, let's go through the things that we're going to need in order for us to achieve this design. So firstly, we're only going to use Divi, and the image that we're going to use is from one of the layout packs. However, you can use any image you want, and also we're going to be using a bit of CSS snippets, but pretty much that's all we need. Okay, so right now I'm in the admin dashboard of my website. I'm going to start off by creating a brand new page. So I'm going to come over here to pages, click on add new. Let's call this page unique full screen, and then I'm going to click on use the Divi builder, and then I'm going to go straight to my visual builder. Right, so what we need here is to start off by adding a full width header. So I'm going to click this plus button and click on full width. So what we need is a full width header, so I'm going to select it. And then what we're going to do next is we're just going to go ahead and delete this first section that we have over here because we don't need to use it. Okay, next I'm going to come over here and add my title. I'm going to come over here to my content text and just paste my dummy text in here. And for the button text, I'm going to call this download now. Now let's add our background color. So I'm going to come over here to background, and I'm going to click on my first tab, and I'm going to come in this area here and paste my hexadecimal value for my background color. Now, if you want to use the same color as I'm using in this tutorial, I'll link to the post in the show notes so you can follow along step by step. Okay, so now that we've added the color, the next thing we need to do is to add our background image. So I'm going to come over here to the third tab. I'm going to click this plus button to add my image. So the image I need to use is this one right here. I'm going to select it. Note the size here is 800 by 564. That's the best size for this tutorial. I'm going to click on upload an image. And then over here where it says background image size, we just want to make sure that we set it to actual size. Okay, so now it's time to go into our design settings. So I'm going to come over here to design, click on layout. So we need to make sure that our text and logo is centered. So I'm going to click here to center it, and then I'm going to make this full screen. So right now, as you can see, my text here is not easy to read on this image. So what we need to do is to add an overlay color. So to do that, I'm going to come over here to overlay, and then I'm going to click this area here. So the color I'm going to use is an RGBA value. So I'm just going to drag the slider a little bit and then paste my values in here. And again, these values can be found in the post, which I will link to in the show notes. So I'm going to paste my value like that. So now you can see it's slightly easier to read, which is what we need to achieve. Now let's work on our fonts. So I'm going to start off with our title text. So I'm going to come over here and we need to use Poppins for this. So I'm going to come over here to default font, and I'm going to choose Poppins. Make sure that it's set to semi-bold. And now I need to add my size, and my size is going to be 4VW. And then over here for our line height, I'm going to set this to 1.2 EM. Now over here, as you can see, I've got 3 lines. So you can always adjust this depending on your screen size to what works for you. So I'm just going to reduce this to 3VW because that's what works for me. Okay, so next we are going to take a look at our content text. So I'm going to come over here to body text. Right, the font we need here is called Color. I'm going to select it. I'm going to come over here to the size and set this to 16 pixels and the line height to 1.5 EM. Now it's time to work on the button. So I'm going to come to button 1 and then activate use custom styles for button because this enables us to make all our design changes to the button. So I'm going to say yes. So for the text size, I'm going to set this to 18 pixels. And then for the button background color, I'm going to add my color. I'm going to paste my hexadecimal value here. And for the border color, I'm going to add the same color as my background color. So I'm going to paste it here as well. Okay, so for the border radius, we're going to set this to 100 like that. So now you can see that the shape of our button has changed. It looks more like a pill. Now let's go and add our font. So right now it's set to default. We want this font to be color, and I'm going to select it here. And for the font weight, I'm going to set this to bold. So that's all we need to do right now for our header section. So I'm going to go ahead now and save. Right, so let's go ahead and add another section. So I'm going to click this plus button here, click on regular. Now what I need here is 3 columns. I'm going to select the 3 columns. And what I need here on the extreme left is a button module. So I'm going to select it. So in the button text, I'm going to say learn more. And for the button link URL, I'm going to add this #2. I don't know, some of you may call it the #2. So anyway, this is what it looks like. This URL will serve as an anchor link to the top of the next section, which will include the matching CSS ID too. Now let's go and customize this button. So I'm going to click on design button and activate custom styles for button. So button text color is what we need to do first. So I'm going to come over here on this eyedropper tool and paste my color in here like that. And then we need to go to our button text size, and I'm going to add 24 for the desktop and 20 for the tablet. So I'm just going to click this little icon here like that and add my value for the tablet. So this just ensures that on all these different screen sizes, it looks fine. Okay, so back over here to my desktop. Now we need to go to the button background color. So I'm going to start off with the gradient here. So I'm going to click this plus button. For our first color, we're going to make it white. And for our second color, it's going to be this very light gray. But this is the value that we need to add in here. It's a hexadecimal value. Now let's add our gradient direction. And this needs to be set at 90 degrees. Our start position needs to be at 70%. And our end position needs to be set at 0. Okay, moving on. Our button border width needs to be set at 0. And the button border radius as well needs to be set at 0. Okay, so let's come over here to the button font, and we are going to set this to color. So this is just that we have consistency throughout our design. Our font weight needs to be set to bold. And for the button icon, we need to add a down arrow. So I'm going to select my arrow here, and then making sure that only show icon on hover for button is set to no. This enables us to have this arrow here on at all times. Now we need to adjust the custom padding. So I'm going to go all the way down here to spacing. And for our custom padding, we're going to have 1.5 EMs for the top and the bottom. So to make things easier for me, I'm going to activate this chain, because by entering my values on the top, they will be automatically added to the bottom. So this just saves me a few seconds of entering this information. Okay, and then for the left, we need to add 30%. Now let's add a bit of animation to this. So I'm going to come over here to the animation tab. We need this to slide, and we want the direction here to be up. So I'm going to choose my animation direction to up. So that's all we need to do for now. So let's go ahead and save. Now we need to make customizations to the section, because we want our button to be above this top section that we've just created, and also to make some adjustments so everything looks right in place. Okay, so let's go into the section settings. We are going to go into our background color first and add our background color. Now this is going to be an RGBA value, so I'm just going to drag this slider down here until I start getting my RGBA value here, and then I'm going to go here and highlight the information between the brackets and paste my RGBA value. Now it's time to add our custom margins, because we want this button here to be around this area here. So in order for us to achieve this, we are going to use some negative margins. Okay, so let's go to design, spacing, and over here on the custom margin, because we want this to be pulled up, we need to go to custom margin top. And our value here is going to be -112. Now look here what happens. As soon as I've entered -112, this has pulled this button up. And this is exactly what we need. And then for the custom padding, we need to add 0 to the top and the bottom. So I'm going to add 0 and 0 to the bottom. Now we can go ahead and save. And then next we need to go into the row settings. So as you can see here, things are getting a bit tight. So I can't really see where everything is. So I'm going to do a bit of adjustments to my design layout. So I'm going to come over here to expand settings, and then I'm going to activate click mode like that. Okay, so now I can see where everything is. So right now I'm searching for my rows. So I'm going to click here as soon as my row is activated like that. And then I'm going to click on the row settings. Right, so let's come over here to design, and the first thing we want to do is to make sure that our row is set to full width. So I'm going to come over here to sizing, make this row full width. We're going to say yes. Use custom gutter width. We're going to say yes. And for the gutter width, we're going to set this to 1. Now, here's the thing. The reason why we want to set the gutter width to 1 is because the gutter itself is the space between these columns. So right now there's a bit of space. So the more we reduce this, it's going to be less and less spaces between these columns. So 1 is what we need. So now this goes all the way to the edge. And then we're going to come over here to spacing, and we are going to add a custom padding of 0 to the top and the bottom. So I'm just going to activate my chain and just add the 0 once, and then that gets applied to the top and the bottom. Okay, so let's save this for now, and let's see what it looks like. So I'm going to publish this page and exit the Visual Builder. Right, so I hope you saw that animation happening. If you take a look at the bottom left of this screen, if I refresh this page, you'll notice that the button is sliding up from the bottom of the screen, which is fantastic. So I'm going to go back into my Visual Builder. Okay, so now it's time to build the section 3, which will have the menu box and the featured content. So let's come over here and add our section. So I'm going to click this plus button here, click on regular, and this is what we need. So I'm going to select it. So this is 1/3, 2/3. So before we start adding all our modules, let's go ahead and make some customizations to our section. Okay, so I'm going to close this for now, and I'm going to go into this gear icon to enter my section settings. So I'm going to click on background, and we're going to start off by adding a background color. So I'm going to click this plus button and paste my value in here. Now, as I mentioned before, if you want to use the same values as I'm using in this tutorial, you can go ahead and follow the link, which I'll leave in the description below. Okay, so now that I have that in place, the next thing I'm going to do is to add my custom padding to the top and the bottom. So I'm going to click on design, spacing, and then I'm going to activate my chain, add a 0 because this needs to be applied to the top and the bottom. Next, we're going to go into the advanced tab, and we are going to add our CSS ID of 2. So I'm going to come over here to the advanced tab, click on CSS ID and classes, and on the CSS ID, I'm just going to add 2. So this will allow the button to scroll to the top of this section. Okay, let's save, and we need to go into the row settings. So I'm going to save changes, and then I'm going to click this gear icon to enter my row settings. In fact, you know what? I'm going to show you something really quick here, which will enable you to work faster, and this is copying the row styles. So I'm going to save this for now, and then I'm going to right click here and copy the row styles like that. And then over here, I'm just going to right click and paste the row styles. Now, all the styles that I had here on the top have been applied to my row here right on the bottom. So this has saved me quite a few seconds trying to enter all my information all over again. Okay, so now I'm going to go into my row settings, click on background, and I need to come over here to a background 1, background color. Column 1, background color. So I'm going to click this plus button and add my color, which is white. So this will serve as my background for my menu box under the button. Now it's time to add my padding. So I'm going to click here on design, spacing. So I'm going to disable this chain because I need to add 10% to the bottom. And then for column 2 padding, I'm going to add 10% to the top, 10% to the left, and 6% to the right. So now we are ready to add our sidebar module to the left column. But before we do that, we need to create a custom menu first. So I'm going to save this for now, and I'm going to save the page. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to open my website in a new tab because I don't want to lose the page that I'm working on. Okay, so I'm going to go into my dashboard, and then we're going to come over here to appearance, click on menus. So if you don't have a menu set, all you have to do is to create a new menu. So let me just show you how to do that. So you come over here, click on create new menu, you give it a name. So let's say menu 2, but of course you can call this whatever you want. Click on create menu, and then you want to make sure that primary menu is checked. And then all you have to do is to add, your pages to this menu. So you can click on view all. So let's say you want to add about us, contact, home, organic, click add to menu, and then you can just rearrange them the way you want. and then click on Save Menu. Now we need to go to Widgets and create our menu widget. So first of all, we're going to give it a name here. So we're going to call this Menu 2. Click on Create. So you can see it's right here. And now we need to add our navigation menu into our Menu 2. Okay, so all I have to do now is to click and drag it to Menu 2. And then I can select the menu here and I need Menu 2. So that's all we need to do. Let's go ahead now and save. Now it's time to go to the page where we are designing our layout. And this time we need to add our module. So I'm going to click this plus button, and the module that we need is the sidebar module. So I'm going to search for it and select it. So here in the widget area, we need to make sure that we select Menu 2, which is what we just created. And here now you can see that these are the navigation links that we created for Menu 2. Now we need to design this sidebar module. So let's start off by coming over here to the Design tab and choosing the body font. So the font here is going to be color. So I'm going to select color like that. We're going to make it bold, and let's add our body text color. So I'm going to click this eyedropper tool and I'm going to paste my color here. And my text size needs to be 24 for the desktop. So I'm going to come over here and add my value, 24 pixels. And I also need to adjust my size for the tablet. So I'm going to click this little icon here and I'm going to click the tablet tab and set my size to 20. Okay, and then back over here to my desktop, I'm going to set my body line height to 2.3 EM. So that just gives enough breathing space over here. Okay, so let's go to the custom padding. So I'm going to come over here to spacing, and for the padding, I'm going to add 20 pixels to the top, and for the bottom, I'm going to add this as a percentage, and this is going to be 10% and 30% left. So the 30% padding is helpful to line up this navigation with also the text on the button, because they both have 30% left padding. Okay, so next we need to come over here to the top and set our show body separator to no. Now let's go to our box shadow and let's make some adjustments there. So I'm going to come over here to box shadow and click this second one. So the settings here are as follows. Box shadow horizontal position is 0, and over here as well, this is going to be 0 pixels. The blur strength, 0. The spread strength, that's going to be 1 pixel. And for the shadow color, I'm just going to come over here to this eyedropper tool so I can add my color. And I'm going to paste my hexadecimal value in here. Okay, so this is pretty much done now. It's time now to add our content onto this second area here of our section. Okay, so let me save. And then I'm going to click this plus button here. We're going to add a divider module first. I'm going to select it. So the color here is going to be a hexadecimal value. So I'm going to come to design, click on color, and I'm going to paste the value in here like that. We're going to click on styles. So here it's solid. That's what we need. And on the divider position, it needs to be set to vertically centered like that. And for the divider weight, we need to set this at 2 pixels. So I'm just going to increase this like that. And the height needs to be set at 18 pixels. So I'm just going to go down a few clicks until I get to 18 pixels. And the width needs to be set at 100 pixels. Okay, so I'm just going to type it in here, 100 pixels. Okay, so that's all we need to do. And let's go ahead and save. So now we need to add another module here under the divider module. So I'm going to click this plus button. And this time, this is going to be a text module. So I'm going to search for it and select it. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of all this text here, the dummy text that comes with our module, and I'm going to paste this text here. So what is happening here is this is just a heading, which I've added in here, and this is just heading 2. The other way you could do this is, if you don't want to add this code in here, is to just do it the long way and come into our visual area here, highlight the text, and then change this from paragraph to heading 2. You achieve the same thing. Okay, so if we come back over here, you can see that this is what it looks like when you take a look at it in the text view. Okay, so what we need to do now is to go into our design tab and let's make some adjustments. So we need to make sure now that we've set it to heading 2, we're going to come over here to heading text and make sure we click on the heading 2 tab. Otherwise, this won't work. Okay, so we're going to start off by adding our heading 2 font, and we need this set to Poppins. So I'm going to select Poppins. Next, I'm going to add my color. So I'm going to click this eyedropper tool and paste my hexadecimal color in here. And the size needs to be set at 18 pixels. So I'm going to come over here and just type in 18. Now it's time to add our margins. So I'm going to come all the way down here to spacing. And for our margin, we need to add a -17 to the top. So I'm going to come over here and paste my -17. So by doing that, it just goes in line with the divider that we've just created. And for our custom padding, I'm going to set it to 120 pixels. Right, so the next thing we need to do is to add our text module. So I'm going to save this for now because this module here is going to have all our content. Okay, so I'm going to click this plus button here and search for my text module, select it, and I'm going to replace this with my content like that. So as I showed you before, I've just went ahead of time and set this to heading 3, but you can achieve it like I did when I showed you how to do it on the About Us heading. Okay, so that just makes things easier for me. So the next thing I'm going to do here is to go to my text font. So I'm going to click here on design, click on text, and we're going to set our text font to color, and our size is going to be set to 16 pixels, which is fine. And our line height needs to be set at 1.6 em. Now for our heading 3, it needs to be set to Poppins. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to scroll down here until I find heading text, and making sure that our third tab is selected for heading 3. I'm going to come over here to my heading 3 font and set it to Poppins. We're going to set this to semi-bold. Next, we're going to come to the text color, and I'm going to paste my hexadecimal value in here. Now it's time to play around with the sizes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set my size to 3VW. Okay, so that looks fine. And also for the tablet, it needs to be a different size. So I'm going to click this phone icon and click on tablet. And this time we're going to set this at 40 pixels. So I'm going to set it like that. And then we're just going to do a quick preview here, and we can see that this is looking brilliant. And then I'm going to click back here on the desktop tab and set our line height to 1.2 EMs. Now it's time to go to our custom padding, because we need to set this at 5% to the top and 2% to the bottom. Right, so for our custom padding, we need to go into our spacing, and I'm going to add my 5% to the top and 2% to the bottom, like that. Okay, go ahead now and save settings. Now it's time to create the last section. So to save us time, what we're going to do is we're just going to clone this last section that we worked on, like that. We're going to go into the section settings and change our background color to white. So I'm going to delete this and just make sure that this is set to white. I'm going to save this, and then we're going to change our column structure here. So I'm going to click this little icon to change our column structure. And this time it's going to be the opposite. It's going to be 2/3, 1/3, like that. And then we're going to make some custom changes to our row settings. So I'm going to click my row settings icon. So we need to change the custom padding to the top. So I'm going to come over here to design, spacing. And for the custom padding top, I'm going to add 10%. I'm going to come over here to column 1 custom padding and also add 10%. In fact, we need to add 10% to the left and 6% to the right. Column 2 custom padding, we just need to restore our settings here like that, and save settings. Now we need to delete the sidebar module. So I'm going to go ahead and click this trash can icon. So now we need to move all this content here to the right, on the right to the left. So I'm just going to drag it over. So I'm just going to do that right now, like that. And also here on the top. And finally, my divider. And then over here on the right, we need to add an image module. So I'm going to click this plus button and search for my image module. I'm going to select image. So let me search for the image I need to use. So I'm going to click here. And the image I'm going to use is going to be, right, let's go with this one right here. Upload an image. And then I'm going to save. So what you want to do now is to change this from 01 to 02, and then you want to change also the title here to maybe services, like that. And you may also go ahead and change the contents of this area here as well. Okay, so let's take a look at our final view. So if I refresh this page here, you'll notice that there's an animation that's going to happen at the bottom of the screen, at the bottom left. There we go. So that's the animation. And if I scroll down here, this is the design of our page, which looks fantastic. And before I leave this page, I also want to show you that the button is also working. So I'm going to click in this area here on this arrow, and you can see that our anchor is also working. So there you have it. Thank you all for watching. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up and do follow us on our social media platforms. By doing so, you'll be notified every time we release new tutorials. Until next time, thanks for watching and see you soon.